So, FNAF World. Scott's failed work, shunned by the creator himself and considered non-canon by the fandom. But what if it was? Was it originally intended to be canon? Let's examine it and see if any of the tangible connections can be made to the series. Released in January 2016, the game appears as a sort of arcade adventure game. We start with the 4 original suits and the toy animatronics as playable characters, implying that if this were to be an in-universe game, it is designed around 1987. It is noted that most of the characters beyond these original 8 are not considered actual game characters by the in-game NPCs, and therefore are glitches in the system. Loading screens exist for pretty much every character within the game, and most of these play as jokes based on fandom's comments about the characters, such as Phantom Chica, giving a somewhat meta feel to the game itself, if it was indeed intended to be an in-universe game. Notably, Mangle, of all characters, has 2 versions of their title card, as there exists a version for both genders. We also learn from this game that endo plushies exist, and therefore characters such as the plush trap from FNAF 4 are indeed capable of existing as endoskeletons due to this smaller model being available. Nightmare Foxy is considered out of order since FNAF 1, which ties to the nightmares in fact being a byproduct of Mike's time in FNAF 1, resulting in him having nightmares of said characters. Also, as FNAF 1 is referenced within this game, if this is an in-universe game, then that would also give us the meta reference that the FNAF games indeed exist within the game's universe itself. Funtime Foxy would make his debut appearance within this game, and appears based on the design to be a fixed version of Mangle. It wasn't meant to last is his tagline, which appears to be foreshadowing of future developments in the lore considering his origins. Shadow Freddy also appears, and oddly his tagline quote appears to be "I will eat your soul." He is also found in the Black Tomb graveyard area alongside the prototypes, implying he is indeed a ghost of some kind and appears to have ties to the prototypes of the company. The 8-bit Fredbear character appears to hold some level of sentience and refers to these new player characters outside the original 8 as monsters, and that they are side effects from the flip side, noting something happened that is causing glitches within the game. It is possible this entity is the same one seen in the opening cutscene based on the similar speech patterns and topic. Everything that happens out there has an effect in here. Do you understand? This is a safe place, a sanctuary, but something has gone wrong, and now it can be seen here. Something went very wrong, that's why I'm here. But I won't let the same happen to you. I will put you back together. So, is this entity in the opening cutscene the same entity that is sending the clock messages? And interestingly, based on the put you back together line, is this the same entity that is controlling the Fredbear plush in FNAF 4? Now, interestingly, the map of the game world is designed in a way that seems to resemble an 8-bit version of the layout of a brain. The barren, dusting fields being where the frontal lobe would be located, and happens to be the location of a strange dancing bear shadow that is never really explained or acknowledged. To add symbolism further, the area also features enemies known as box bites, which relates to the 2 biggest events seen in FNAF 4, the bite and the box. And Lolbit, as our vendor character NPC, is also seen to be selling Reapers within this zone. Now, something that I've picked up that has never really been elaborated on as far as I can tell in the fandom is that one character is featured in these loading cards that is not present as a playable character, Virtual Freddy. He is able to use Mimic Ball, which notably is only used by Shadow Bonnie, Chipper, Fredbear, and the Paper Pals. As Shadow Bonnie and the plates can be attributed to remnant energy, as we have been introduced to in the Silver Eyes novels, Fredbear is Fredbear, who links Henry and the murders with the residual spirits in the franchise. Chipper, however, is more of an enigma, which brings us to the comments made by Chipper in the ending of the game. Chipper seems to be enraged that Freddy's franchise overshadowed his own, which may provide some meta-commentary on the franchise Freddy's was based on, as well as help us to expand the in-universe lore, as if this is indeed an in-universe game giving us meta details, then Chippers must in some way, shape or form exist within the Freddy's universe. So the real world lore Freddy's is based on. In 1977, Pizza Time Theatre is founded by Atari co-founder Nolan Bushnell and used to promote and sell games. He based his animatronic concept on Disney's Country Bear Jamboree. The mascot was intended to be a coyote, but later was changed when the costume made was in fact a rat. By 1978, the Atari company's parent corporation refused to open more sites, so Bushnell bought out the rights and went on to open 7 sites by 1979, all of which used animatronics created on site. Bushnell entered into a co-development agreement with Robert Brock of Topeka and management in order to expand to other states. However, when Brock became aware of Aaron Fletcher of Creative Engineering Incorporated and saw his animatronics rivaled Bushnell's, he left his partnership and with Fletcher developed Showbiz Pizza Place Incorporated, a virtually identical concept to Bushnell's, which would lead to the court battles in 1980. Now, an event known as the Great Video Game Crash of 1983 would spell trouble for Bushnell, as the blow to business would lead to bankruptcy by 1984. Brock would then buy up the company and merge the concepts to create Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. The merger gradually unified both brands until Creative Engineering decided to leave in 1990. All sites, therefore, became Chuck E. Cheese by 1992, and due to withholding rights, all Creative Engineering characters were removed from the shows. By 1998, Showbiz Pizza Time renamed to Chuck E. Cheese Entertainment Incorporated. It would go on to buy up other franchises over the years and incorporate them. Now we can see the similarities that Freddy's has to this franchise, as it is in some way based on it. Freddy's starts small and features pizza and animatronics. Freddy's was known to be co-owned by Henry and Afton in the franchise, yet we see that Afton also had Afton Robotics building rival animatronics, an identical concept but with different robots. Is it possible Afton and Henry had a similar interaction as the real-world founders? Afton tries to open circus babies after the fall of Freddy's, as referenced in Sister Location, but what fall? I believe that fall may have been in 1983 during the Great Video Game Crash, which would have crippled Freddy's. Now the interesting part is that in 1983, Fredbear's and Friends existed as a TV show. This shows the Fredbear's and Friends concept had not yet been transitioned fully, and it is possible that Afton's influence led to this merger. So, if Afton knew Henry in the Fredbear's era, but unification didn't occur fully until at least 1983, then how does their relationship reflect the real-world lore? Henry may have been the side company. Henry was worshipped by Afton. His robots were better, so Afton used him to build the Freddy's franchise out of Fredbear's. So who was his Atari partners that he left behind to do so? Chippers. So Chippers gets overshadowed by Freddy's. Afton still has access to robotics of lesser quality than Henry's at the earliest stage of Freddy's that can be used for Circus Baby's Pizza. Now we know by 1985 the company is no longer in Afton's control following the missing children incident, and by 1987 he will have been unreachable by the company, having left town following said incident. Interestingly also, by the time of the 90s, Freddy's is run by Fazbear Entertainment Incorporated, which mirrors the real world lore, and in a way supports my theory that FNAF 1 in fact does not occur in 1983, but perhaps later in the 90s based on the dating. Now, FNAF World continues the trend of the games having multiple endings, and these result in trophies, which we can infer based on FNAF 3, all provide lore, but don't necessarily all have to continue in the timeline as canon. We get references to a puppet master who created the game and mocks the player for completing normal mode, which gives a trophy for defeating security. This may imply a connection to the security guard in FNAF 2 being arrested and subsequently taking the blame for a crime he did not commit. If hard mode is completed, the player fights Anim Dude, the avatar of Scott Coffin, in a meta joke of sorts. This Anim Dude is implied therefore to be the creator of the game within the universe of the games. This meta joke of Scott's existence within the game universe is furthered by the use of Coffee and Souldozer in the Halloween update, as they imply that Scott's other works exist in canon in this world too in some capacity. Now, the glitch tunnels are being created, it seems, by the same error, which is causing other issues and allows the player to dive deeper into the computer code and becoming more abstract and dissolved as a being the deeper they go. Interestingly, the player figure goes from a Freddy head to a basic endo-like block, then a simple sprite, aka code, showing the deeper you go into the computer system, the further you get from the material world and closer to non-existence or just completely being abstracted out of this reality. The 8-bit Fredbear seems to know that if you go too deep, you will become trapped, but how they know this is unknown, it seems. The events outside are noted to affect the virtual world, but the events that causes the glitches is never definitively given, so I'm going to infer that it is related to the murders and accidents at Freddy's corrupting the games console in some way. Now, at the bottom of the code is Old Man Consequences, who sits fishing in a pool with the player trapped forever. The pool leads to an eternal void that shows what is believed to be an angel or a figure holding two smaller figures in a hug watching a screen, while the reaching Old Man Consequences will give an 8-bit Freddy trophy, the void secret will crash the game. Now, an interesting thing of note is, who exactly is Old Man Consequences? Is he the reason that the Fredbear character knows that you can't come back from the code, as he does appear to be trapped there in some way? And so, what exactly is the significance in universe of the characters being able to meet with Old Man Consequences? There is a trophy that is obtained by completing DD's game 5 times. The only lore relevance it would seem though would be that the connection of 5 is related in some way to the 5 kids. Other than that, this does not seem to have any discernible reason to connect it to the lore besides it being a fun minigame. Now, the Crying Child trophy seems to be the lore heavy one, as it directly requires the player to be aware of the secret lore hidden in the game. By locating the clocks under the glitch Fredbear's directions, The players appear to set up the mini-games in FNAF 3. Upon completion, the FNAF 4 ending speech returns. "We are still your friends. Do you still believe that? The pieces are in place for you. All you have to do is find them. Rest." This trophy gives a happy crying child, while in the loading screens he is noted to still be sad prior to this. So the clock ending in some way cheers up the child, and happiest day may have been an attempt to let the crying child be free. This would imply the events of using the arcade games to complete happiest day would not occur during FNAF 3 in the timeline, but perhaps it is in fact meant to occur sometime before it. And so it would seem that the yellow-eyed mystery character's goal within this game appears to be creating the happiest day to allow the crying child to be released in some way or shape or form. And the fact that they are saying that they will put them back together is entirely possible, given that we know from Phone Guy that they survived the bite that occurred, that this may in fact be the child being brought back, as in surviving the bite. Now, I believe unlocking all characters in the game will give you a fan trophy, while making Fredbear talk to himself in the cutscenes will result in a paradox event giving a Fredbear's leg trophy. Now, it is interesting that it is noted that no two Fredbears can exist in the same time and space, and this may be an in-universe way of confirming that there is in fact only one Fredbear / Golden Freddy in existence. Now, the release of Update 2 may provide us with the clues to put all these pieces together. The teasers for it note that madness takes many forms and even shows Mangle from the original trailer having hanged itself. While many became concerned at this, and for Scott's well-being, it is entirely possible that it is in fact lore relevant and that we have misconstrued the meaning behind what Scott was trying to perceive. The madness being referenced is in relation to the desk man, or Henry. We are told that Desk Man is insane and making something. When he is reached, he laments the games being deactivated and regrets having created something terrible, Circus Baby, before appearing in a pool of blood on the desk. So this is how I interpret this. What we see is a memory. Henry laments the loss of his games in the video game crash, and is in the process of creating Baby at this time. Upon realizing what he has made, he attempts to end his life. This is Baby's memory, and this is her introduction as a pair of yellow dot eyes, just like the creature we see in the opening cutscenes. The same eyes that of wanting to put something back together. The same entity guiding the player to unlock the clocks, and the same entity that wants to repair the crying child. And so, based on logic, we can infer that the same entity that promises to put the child back together in FNAF 4 may indeed be Baby. Baby is the Fredbear plush entity. Baby appears to be able to enter and influence electronic systems outside of her own body, something we will come to see in future installments by the animatronics as possible. So the identities of most of the characters in this game are as follows. Chippers is believed to be an early rival of Freddy Fazbear's. Animdude is, while not Scott himself specifically, an in-universe game developer heavily built around the concept of what Scott's life is. Baby is the yellow eyes / the Fredbear plush / 8-bit Fredbear who is guiding us along. So, assuming that Henry is Deskman, then we can assume that since Henry dies in 1985 according to the novels, Henry does not actually die at the desk. It is merely an attempt that does not actually lead to his death. And so he would go on in future at his actual death to become Old Man Consequences, who fishes for his ideal fantasy, being with his two kids again. The fact meeting him gives an 8-bit Fredbear trophy seems to hint somewhat at his identity being connected to Fredbear, and also the fact that the Fredbear Legs trophy could also be inferred as a hint as well, as the 8-bit Fredbear guiding us is a fraud impersonating the original, who no longer holds the mantle of Fredbear. No two Fredbears can exist at the same time. Who is he now? Our last loose end character, Virtua Freddy, barely able to exist for seconds at a time to aid the player. As it says in the title cards for him, blink and you will miss him. What remnant of him existed within the system went too far into the code and got trapped, barely able to exist beyond the fourth layer for fractions of a second at a time. The one intriguing mystery left from FNAF World that still to this day does not appear to have an answer is that the FNAF 4 box is present within the game's files, and it is open. It is noted that the box is stated by Scott to have been filled with the pieces put together. However, within this game we are told by what we can assume to at this point to now be Baby to put the pieces together, and we will put the crying child back together. So if for whatever reason there was anything within the box, we could assume it is in some way connected to the crying child. So that seems to be all the lore that I can glean from FNAF World that may in some way impact the continuing story of the actual franchise. In the next installment, I will move on to what is possibly the most ambitious and lore-changing installment of the franchise, which invites us to meet our newest major character from here on out, the sister location.